Hi and welcome to this short practice. I'm Lucy and I'm going to guide you through some gentle moves and a couple of restorative postures as well, just for a few short minutes. So I'm going to invite you to begin by finding a comfortable seat. I'm going to sit with one foot in front of the other. You can sit cross-legged. If you prefer, you can sit with your legs straight out in front. Just find a position where you can sit with your spine nice and long, shoulders can relax away from the ears, rest in the hands, and then just for a moment let's close the eyes, or maybe just lower the gaze. And let's just spend a few breaths to settle in, attuning to the natural breath, becoming aware of it, becoming aware of the quality of the breath, the pace of the breath, the rhythm. Not trying to change it or do anything with it, just allowing yourself to become really present in the moment. Then we're going to blink the eyes open. We're going to take the right hand, a big step out to the right hand side, keeping the shoulders square with the front edge of your mat, or just keeping them in line. If you're not working on a mat, let's sweep the left arm over for a side bend. So we're looking for a stretch between this left hip and these left ribs. Coming back up to centre, we're going to do the same thing on the left hand side, big step out to the left hand side, right arm comes over, and over to the right. You can see that I'm not rounding or bending forwards, I'm keeping everything really straight. And if that means you don't go as far, then that's fine. It's this sideways movement that we're looking for. One more time over to the left hand side, reaching that top hand. Your gaze can be to the floor, it can be to the top hand, wherever feels comfortable for you. This time we're going to spin this right hand around behind us. I'm planting those fingers on the floor behind the small of my back. Left hand's coming to the right knee, gaze over the right shoulder for a gentle twist. Sweeping round past the centre, the left hand's going to come around behind, right hand to the left knee. Gaze over the left shoulder. Trying to keep the spine really long, again not rounding or leaning, and keeping that jaw parallel to the floor. Coming back to centre, I'm going to cross the legs properly now. I'm going to take a breath in to lengthen the spine, and as I exhale I'm hinging forward from the hips just until I feel some resistance. Not trying to put my head on the floor or anything like that, it's just one of the first moves we've done, so let's take it nice and steady. And it might feel good to sway while you're here, might prefer to stay still. And walking the hands in, we're going to bring the fingertips or the palms down behind us, rolling the shoulders back and down, arching the spine. You can drop the head back as well if that feels good. Coming back up to centre, let's cross the legs the awkward way. You might not have an awkward way, most of us do. So let's cross them the other way. Inhale to lengthen and exhale, hinging forwards again to that point of resistance. Doesn't matter how far you go, particularly when you practice at home, nobody can see you, it doesn't matter. Again, little sway or maybe find some stillness. And then easing back up to centre, let's move that out of the way. We're going to bring the legs out wide. Make sure you're still sat on your sitting bones. Again, we're not rounding into it. We're sitting up nice and tall. And we're going to pull the toes up towards us, nice and active. You can rest into the fingertips if that helps. And from here, we're just going to point and flex the feet. Just moving backwards and forwards, easing those ankles. Then we're going to draw the soles of the feet in together, allowing the knees to fall open. You can bring the hands to the feet or the ankles if that feels good, letting the knees relax. Or Baddha Konasana, bound cobbler pose. Then we're going to release the feet, fingertips just behind, extending the legs out in front of us, pulling the toes up towards us, sitting up nice and tall. And let's slide those legs wide again. Flex and point those feet. Just a few times, get some movement into that joint, and then drawing the feet in together. Again, holding the ankles or feet if that feels good, let those knees relax. Sit up nice and tall. And then extending the legs away from you. Toes pull up towards the shin bones, sit up nice and tall. Good, I'm going to invite you now to come over onto your hands and your knees. So hands are directly under shoulders, knees are directly under hips. We're spreading the hands out. Little bend in the elbows if they have a tendency to lock out the wrong way. Knees directly under hips. Neck is nice and neutral to begin with in a real square tabletop position, and we're going to begin with cat and cow. So we're going to tuck the tailbone under, pull the tummy in, round, and the shoulders drop in the head. And then we're going to lift the sitting bones, melting the belly and the chest through, lifting the gaze last of all. So really making it a nice wave-like motion from one to the other, and it might be nice to time it with the breath, so we're inhaling as we come through to cow pose, lifting the sitting bone and the gaze. Exhaling as we come through to cat, tucking the tailbone and the head under, really pulling the tummy in, pushing up into the back of the shoulders. Inhale to cow. Exhale to cow. So then we're going to move to a neutral position again, neutral spine, neutral neck, and we're going to draw some figure of eights with our belly button. So they might be tiny little figure of eights, or you might want to make them really big figure of eights, really getting into all the joints, the wrists, the knees, the hips, the shoulders. Some really big figure of eights there. And then we're going to do that in the opposite direction as well. That's the hardest thing I'm going to ask you to do this whole practice, I promise. Changing direction, making the mind work. Good, and coming back then to centre. We're going to tuck the toes under for our first downward facing dog. We're going to keep our knees bent first of all as we lift the hips up and back. So we're not worried about the heels touching the floor, we're spreading the hands out, pushing the ground away, melting the chest through. You can see that my arms are coming in line now with my torso. I'm going to give the head a good wobble, releasing tension in the neck. Tummy just pulled in, sitting bones rising up to the sky, and then I'm going to start to walk the heels up and down one at a time, bending each knee alternately. And then allowing the heels, if it feels okay, to settle towards the mat and finding some stillness in our downward facing dog. Taking a few breaths here, feeling the hands and the feet taking equal weight. And then lowering the knees down to the mat, we're going to take a child's pose. So it might be quite nice to draw the knees wide, keeping the toes, the big toes together, sitting the hips back. You can really get down then inside, reaching the arms forward. You can rest the forearms down, you can make a pillow for your head with your hands if you prefer. Find a position that works for you. If you'd rather bring your hands around behind. And if this doesn't work for you, then feel free to lie on your front, lie on your side, make it a resting pose that is comfortable for you. Don't be sat here feeling uncomfortable, thinking that you've got to do this. You don't have to do it, it's your practice. Listen to your body. Do what feels good for you. Okay, gently easing yourself up and forwards. If you're not already, we're going to come to lie down on our front. We're going to bring the elbows directly underneath the shoulders, so we don't want them further back so that we're having to use effort to stay here. We want to bring the elbows underneath the shoulders. Forearms are parallel to each other, palms are face down, so we're coming into a Sphinx pose. So we're going to relax the legs, relax the glutes, feel the pelvis, the belly in contact with the mat, and then we can either relax into this Sphinx pose, dropping the head, shoulder blades move together, almost shrugging into the pose, or if it feels nice, we can push into the forearms, lift ourselves up, lift the gaze for a little bit more of a back bend. You might want to alternate between the two, see what feels nice, spend a few moments here, wriggle into it. Enjoying this nice gentle back bend. Good, and then we're going to roll over onto our back. So we're going to come to lie down with the knees bent, the feet flat to the floor. We're going to bring the outside edges of the feet in line with the outside edge of the hips. So we'll come into bridge pose. The thighs are going to try and stay parallel to each other. Arms are down by our side, palms face down. So the shoulders are away from the ears, the neck's got lots of room. And we're going to bring our awareness to begin with to the lumbar curve. So you can see there's a space, you might not be able to see, there's a space behind my lower back there. And for this first movement, we're just going to take a breath in as we exhale, just flattening that curve. So my pelvis tilts the other way, and the whole of the spine now is flat along the mat. And then releasing that off. Take a breath in as we exhale, we're flattening that curve, pushing into the feet, just hovering the hips ever so slightly above the mat, just an inch or two over the mat, watching that the thighs don't wander out, make a note now of that, and then rolling the spine and the hips back down. Good, take a breath in as you exhale, flattening that curve, pushing into the feet, lifting the hips, perhaps coming up onto the back of the ribs this time, glutes are starting to engage, making sure again that those thighs don't wander, and rolling. Good, take a breath in as you exhale, flatten that curve, lift the hips, rolling up perhaps onto the back of the shoulders this time, feet really starting to do some work, spending a breath or two here, and then gently rolling back down. We're going to do that again now. You might want to readjust the feet, you might feel that they need to come in slightly further. I'm going to keep the gaze up to the ceiling now as I'm going to put more pressure in the shoulder, the upper chest area, hands are going to press down into the mat. And with an exhale, I'm going to flatten that lumbar curve, roll the hips up off the mat, roll them to the back of the ribs, back of the shoulders, really squeezing the glutes, lifting up this time. You might feel that you want to roll to the right so you can tuck the left shoulder under, roll to the left so you can tuck the right shoulder under, and if you can keep your arms flat on the mat, you can interlace the fingers behind the back. If you find that you're doing this, then you're better just keeping your hands down. It's entirely up to you what feels better. So taking a couple more breaths here in this nice steady back bend, and then releasing the arms and rolling back down, reversing the movement as we came up. Good. Now we're going to keep the knees bent, feet flat to the floor for a second. We're going to push into those feet so we can shift the hips to the left, which will allow the knees to fall easily to the right, and then bringing the arms out wide if that feels nice. You might prefer to cactus the arms, you might even prefer to leave them on the torso. My preferred way in this nice gentle twist is to have the arms out wide, and I'm going to wriggle to make sure that I'm staying comfortably. Now you can take your gaze over your left shoulder. I don't find it makes a lot of difference in this twist, so you can keep it up to the ceiling if you prefer. But really try and relax into this, try and let go of tension in the belly. We spend a lot of time holding our bellies in, sometimes because it looks better, sometimes because we're holding tension there, sometimes stress, anxiety. Take this time now to let it relax, let it go. Just taking a couple more breaths here. And then let's bring the knees back to centre. We're going to push into the feet again so we can shift the hips to the right this time. Knees are going to fall comfortably to the left. Making sure both shoulders are down, reposition the arms, wriggle so that you're not taking any effort to stay. And again, really concentrating on allowing the muscles to relax. Feeling that stretch down outside of the hip, feeling these ribs on the right hand side open and moving freely and easily. Enjoy that feeling of being completely relaxed, not taking any effort to stay. Easing back now to centre. We're going to do one last pose. I want you to bring your hands underneath the lower back and fingertips are kind of underneath my glutes at the moment. Elbows are out wide. I'm going to bring the knees up and in and then extend the toes up towards the ceiling. So these hands are just helping support me. I'm going to find a place where my legs can feel like they're comfortably hanging. You might need to bring your hands further up underneath the lower back. We're not going to spend a long time here, but try and find a position where your legs feel almost weightless. And if they're not completely straight, it doesn't matter, you can have a little bend in them. We're just reversing that blood flow in the legs. We'll bring in the legs and the hips ever so slightly above the heart. Give it a little rest. You can close the eyes here if it feels nice. And obviously if you're at home and you've got room, feel free to put your legs up against the wall in this same position, then you can really relax into it. You don't need to use the arms. Get yourself as close, so you're sitting bones as close to the wall as you can, extending the legs up the wall, resting the heels on it. One of my absolute favourite poses. I just don't really have the setup to do it here in front of the camera. And if you are at home, you could spend a good 5-10 minutes here if your legs are resting against the wall. For now, let's bend those knees in, releasing the hands. Let's wrap the arms around the legs, a little roll round on that lower back now. And then we're going to bring ourselves into your version of Shavasana. So my version of Shavasana looks like this, legs extended, feet flopping out, arms away from the body, palms face up. Closing the eyes or maybe gently lowering the gaze. You may prefer to keep your knees bent, your feet flat to the floor. You might prefer to lie on one side. Find a position that's really comfortable. Make little adjustments that you need to be able to stay. And then with the eyes closed, letting everything relax. Taking this time to let the body assimilate the practice. And we've not done a very vigorous practice, but giving the energy time to settle where we've stirred it up. And rest is just as important as activity, sometimes more so. So taking this time now just to let everything go. And we're only going to take a short Shavasana as part of this practice, but if you are at home and you've got more time, then I would invite you to take it. Take another 5 minutes, another 10 minutes, whatever you've got available. If you haven't, you're stuck for time. And let's begin now to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Perhaps moving the wrists and the ankles if it feels nice. And then seeing what your body wants to do, whether you want to take a big stretch with the arms overhead, feeling the full length of the body. Whether you want to draw the knees into the torso, wrapping the arms around, giving yourself a big hug. And then I'm going to invite you to come over on your right hand side to come back up. I'm just going to roll back up to a comfortable seated position, sitting up nice and tall. I'm going to draw the hands into Anjali Mudra, prayer pose at the heart. And then lowering the chin to the chest, the head to the heart, reinforcing the connection that we make with every practice. I'd like to thank you for joining me this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening. Namaste. I hope to see you again on the mat soon.